My boss stared at me with surprise and then asked, "Why did you arrive by taxi today? What happened to the car we gave you for your promotion?" Before I could respond, my husband in HR smiled and said, "Her sister drives that car right now." My boss fell silent for a moment, and what he did next made me genuinely proud. Have you ever had a moment where your whole life, your career, yourself, just fractured? Mine happened in a quiet, glass-walled conference room. My formidable boss, Elena, looked at me with concern, and before I could even open my mouth, my own husband, Owen, delivered a casual, gut punch of a confession that detonated my entire world. Why was I in a taxi? Elena's voice was gentle, but her question hit me like a physical blow. It was the question I'd been dreading for 3 weeks. What happened to the car we gave you for your promotion, Abigail? I could feel Owen's presence next to me, a low hum of static electricity in that room. My husband, the company's HR director, the man who was supposed to be on my side. And before I could answer, before I could scramble for another excuse about car trouble or maintenance to protect him, Owen spoke. "Her sister is using that car now." His tone was so casual, so utterly matter-of-fact. Like he was commenting on the weather. Like he hadn't just announced to my boss that he'd given away company property, my company property, without my permission. The silence that followed lasted maybe 3 seconds. But in those 3 seconds, I watched my entire marriage, my hard-earned career, my carefully constructed life, all of it started to crack apart. And Elena's face told me she was about to do something about it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I ended up in that conference room, in that impossible moment where my own husband could casually destroy me in front of my boss without even looking up from his phone. It started 3 weeks earlier, over breakfast. I'd woken up at 6:15 a.m., like every morning for 6 years, slipping out of bed without waking Owen. The house was silent, except for the hum of that expensive espresso machine he'd insisted we buy, restaurant grade, professional quality. Of course, I never learned to use it properly because the third time I tried, he'd taken over, muttering I was doing it wrong. So, I made instant coffee instead. The cheap kind Owen called garbage. I microwaved water in a mug, stirred in the crystals, and stood at the kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint Camelback Mountain in shades of pink and gold. My Audi should have been in the driveway. The pearl white Q5 with caramel leather interior that came with my promotion to Senior Solutions Architect last year. My designated parking spot at work had been empty for weeks now. And every morning I stood at that window, I felt that absence like a missing tooth. You know, the kind you can't stop touching with your tongue, even though it hurts? I told myself it was temporary. That Owen's sister, Charlotte, really did need it. That I was being difficult, materialistic, petty for caring so much about a car. But standing there with my cheap coffee, feeling the full story on the channel. Link below. Click now and watch what happened next.